Here's a list of completely real, out-of-context things that happen in Season 0 of Yugioh. Yugi challenges a fortune teller to catch bottles of chloroform before they hit the floor. He tricks a master of disguise into lighting himself on fire. He defuses a bomb threat by hiding a bomb of his own at the bomber's hideout. And Joey cross-dresses to enter a girls' popularity contest. This is Yu-Gi-Oh! Season 0. But what exactly is Season 0? In short, it's the very first Yu-Gi-Oh! Adaptation. Animated by Toei, the same studio known for Dragon Ball and One Piece, it aired from 1998 to 1999, adapting the earliest chapters of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Manga. It never received an international release and was completely overshadowed by the sequel, which took the franchise global, and that's why most fans outside of Japan have never even heard of it. And unlike the version most people know, Season 0 barely deals with trading cards at all. Instead, it plays out like a Monster of the Week show, except the monsters are school bullies and petty criminals. And the battles range from rigged vending machines and tabletop games, all the way to psychological death traps. Nearly every episode introduces a new game, and every game comes with consequences you won't see coming. That's what Yu-Gi-Oh! Was originally about. Ordinary games twisted into psychological trials. The rules are simple, the stakes are deeply personal, and when someone cheats or loses, it's way more than just losing a game. It sounds absolutely insane, but here's the thing. Season 0 is the most grounded Yu-Gi-Oh! Series in the entire franchise. Let's start at the beginning. Yugi is a high school boy who is painfully shy. He spends his days playing games by himself, and he's pretty much an outcast. Not the type we're used to seeing in anime, he's not hated or feared, he's just invisible. Too quiet to stand out and too nervous to ask anyone to play with him. The only person who really talks to him is his childhood friend Anzu. Yugi has a serious crush on her, but she's got him locked in the little brother zone. And honestly, I don't blame her. At school, Yugi gets picked on constantly. Even Joey, who becomes his best friend later, starts out by teasing him. In the first scene, Joey snatches Yugi's puzzle and laughs at him while holding it out of reach. It's only when Anzu shows up and shuts it down that Yugi gets it back. I love this introductory scene because it effortlessly establishes who everyone is and how they all fit together. When Joey takes the puzzle, he encourages Yugi to fight back. Yugi doesn't stand a chance, leaving Anzu to get it for him. When Anzu takes the puzzle away from Joey, she calls him a bully, and Joey gets legitimately upset. That line really strikes a chord with him. It's a small moment, but it tells you everything. Joey isn't out to hurt anyone. His teasing comes from a place of wanting to help Yugi stand up for himself. His behavior was immature, but he thought he was helping. Anzu, on the other hand, is the backbone of the group. She's the one who's not afraid to speak up even when it's uncomfortable. Honda's role here is a far cry from what fans might remember, but in a good way. In the manga and in Duel Monsters, he's barely even a character. Nothing would change if he was gone. But here in Season 0, he's full of personality. When Joey takes the puzzle from Yugi, Honda talks down to him for behaving badly. Then Joey mocks Honda for his failed run at class president. Honda retorts that it's not a problem because he's been reborn as a member of the Beautification Club, which is only a fancy way of calling him a janitor. As such, he's extremely straight-laced and obsesses over the rules. That is, until Miho enters the picture. Honda's weakness for Miho turns his whole character upside down. When she enters the scene, she says she hasn't had lunch because there were too many people. Honda not only offers to buy her lunch, he then goes barreling down the hallway like it's an emergency before she even answers. Now, Miho might seem like a shallow character at first. After all, she wasn't a main character in the manga, and she was only made into one so the cast would have a more balanced ratio of male to female leads. But they gave her just enough quirks, as well as power over Honda, to make her a worthwhile addition. In fact, she's surprisingly cunning. There were multiple times where she had me genuinely questioning if things simply worked out in her favor, or if she had intended for things to happen the way they did. For instance, in this very scene, Miho randomly blurts out that she hasn't eaten lunch. It's possible she said this because when a person is hungry, it's hard not to think about it, but because I know how she behaves in later episodes, I can't ignore the fact she went out of her way to find Honda and say that in front of him. She didn't try to stop him from rushing to get her food either. So by the end of this one scene, everyone's relationships are understood. Yugi is weak and lonely, but kind to others. Joey is rough and immature, but he's not a bad guy. Honda's a model student with a glaring weakness for Miho, and Anzu's protective nature and leadership skills are on full display, all before anyone plays a single game. But there's one more thread quietly running in the background: the Millennium Puzzle. Yugioh's puzzle is an ancient Egyptian artifact passed down from his grandfather. No one knows what its original purpose was, only that it's rumored to grant a wish to whoever solves it. Yugioh believes that wish could finally bring him what he's always wanted: a real friend. But here in the first episode, that wish feels farther away than ever. After class, Yugioh, the school hall monitor, offers to protect Yugioh from bullies, but it's a scam. After school, he ambushes Joey and Honda and beats them up. When Yugioh finds out, he is devastated. Joey and Honda weren't exactly kind to him, but they definitely didn't deserve this. He tells Yugioh to leave them alone. Yugioh demands 200,000 yen from Yugioh in protection fees, then tells him if he doesn't pay up, he will become Yugioh's next victim. That night, Yugioh can't sleep, so he stays up late working on his puzzle, and he nearly completes it. He's only one piece short, but can't find the last piece. In a panic, he rushes back to school to search for it. Instead, he finds Yugioh there waiting for him. Yugioh beats him up for not having the protection money, but before he could finish the job, Joey shows up. He tries to defend Yugioh, but first, he slips something into Yugioh's hand, the final piece of the puzzle. It turns out Joey pocketed it earlier when he was teasing Yugioh. In that moment, Yugioh makes his wish, snaps the last piece into place, and everything changes. A light erupts as Yugioh transforms into a bolder, more confident version of himself. He then challenges Yugioh to a shadow game. And here's where things get crazy. Before Yugioh has a chance to respond, he finds himself dangling from a rooftop by a rope. Cards are spread face down across the roof. Yugioh explains the rules of the game. Each player flips a card. The number tells them how far they can climb up the rope and how far the other player drops. First to the top wins a prize. At first, Yugioh plays along. He draws a 10, Yugioh follows with a king, then a queen, then a jack. And he's one step away from winning when Yugioh lunges up the rope, accusing Yugioh of rigging the game. Yugioh warns him, breaking the rules has consequences. Yugioh swings at Yugioh, the rope tears apart, and he falls off the building. But not just physically. As he plummets, he sees terrifying monsters in the water beneath him that aren't really there. Yugioh cries out in terror as he plunges into the water. The next day, he is found curled up in a ball, mumbling in fear. This is the power of a shadow game. But the real power is displayed moments later. At school, Joey walks up to Yugioh. He says he wants to follow Yugioh's example, then shares a riddle. He has a treasure, something you can show but can't see. The answer? Friendship. Yugioh's wish is already starting to come true. Before we go any further, I want to take a second to shout out the sponsor of this video, Figgies, a new way to collect your favorite Yugioh icons. These aren't your typical display figures. Each Figgies comes with a slick pixel art design and a magnetic base that lets you stick them just about anywhere. Your desk, your fridge, your locker, and even your wall thanks to the included 3M magnet. It's clean, compact, and surprisingly addictive. Wave 2 just dropped featuring Seto Kaiba along with his signature monsters. And yes, that includes Blue Eyes White Dragon. All of this for just $14.99, and if you use code ENIGMA at checkout, you'll get 5% off your order. If you want to collect Yugioh in a way that's both fun and stylish, hit the link in the description and check out Figgies today. While Season 0 is known for its punishments, that's only half the appeal. What I love most about Season 0 is how the shadow game power transforms Yugioh's quiet little hobby into something much bigger. Games aren't just a pastime anymore. After Yugioh solves the puzzle, they become powerful tools that he can use to impact the people around him. You see it almost immediately in episode 2. When an escaped prisoner takes Anzu hostage in a restaurant, Yugioh, or more accurately the spirit of the puzzle, is the one who steps in to save her. He tricks the man into playing a game. Then he flips the tables, takes control of the situation, and rescues her. But here's the kicker. Anzu never actually sees Yugioh's face. She's blindfolded during the whole altercation, which is a clever way to keep the mystery alive. What she does hear, though, is his voice. Calm, confident, and fearless. It plants a question in her mind. Was that really Yugioh? And it's a totally valid question, because we've already seen that Yugioh's willing to stand up for others, but he's never had the strength to make a difference. We saw it when he tried and failed to protect Joey and Honda in the first episode. And on top of that, Yugioh blacks out every time the spirit of the puzzle takes over, which means he doesn't even remember saving her himself. So for Anzu, there's this conflict in her mind. The voice definitely sounded like Yugioh's, but the person who saved her wasn't the Yugioh she knew. She starts to wonder if it was really him or someone else entirely. The sense of doubt sticks with Anzu for a while. Several episodes later, she invites Yugi to a theme park with plans to figure out once and for all if he's the mysterious savior. Yugi naturally thinks it's a potential date, but Anzu's not there for romance. Her plan is simple. She believes if she pretends to drown, she'll draw out the other side of Yugi, the one who saved her that day. But it doesn't work. He doesn't respond the way she expected, leaving her feeling disappointed, so she retreats to the Ferris wheel. What she doesn't know is that things are about to get way worse. A threat is called into the theme park, claiming most of the Ferris wheel carts have bombs planted in them. When the police evacuate the park, Yugi sees Anzu is in real danger. This time, Yugi can't wait around. The puzzle spirit takes over again, and he rushes into action to save her. This time, Anzu sees everything. She witnesses Yugi's heroic act firsthand. But when she goes to thank him, she's hit with a crushing realization. Yugi's back to his old self. He's shy, he's nervous, he's not the confident person who saved her moments before. It's around this point that Anzu starts to develop real feelings for Yugi. A few episodes later, Yugi finds a love letter in his locker, and suddenly, Anzu's dealing with a storm of jealousy. And what's great about this changing dynamic between Yugi and Anzu is that it's not the spirit of the puzzle she's falling for. It may seem that way on the surface because Yugi is only able to rescue Anzu thanks to the power he received from the puzzle, but he's always had the strength to stand up for others. We saw it in the first episode when Yugi tried to stop Yugioh for beating up Joey and Honda. We saw it again in the water park episode when Anzu pretended to drown. Yugi rushed into the water even though he couldn't swim. Without the puzzle's power, Yugi had the heart to do what was right, he just never had the physical strength to back it up. That's what makes Anzu's feelings for Yugi genuine. They come from realizing she's misjudged someone she thought she knew. So as time goes on, she stops seeing him as someone who needs protecting and starts to wonder if he might be the one protecting her. And of course, this change is not limited to Anzu. When we first meet Joey, he's a bit of a jerk. But when he runs into Yugioh, a real bully, it's clear the two aren't the same. Yugioh thrives on cruelty and extortion. Joey, on the other hand, believed Yugi was benefiting from his teasing. When Yugi confronts Yugioh for his actions, Yugioh only doubles down. But when Anzu calls out Joey for picking on Yugi, he denies it and then runs at the first chance he gets because he can't handle the comparison. Then, after Yugi steps in to protect Joey and Honda, Joey returns the stolen piece of Yugi's puzzle, enabling Yugi to stop Yugioh once and for all. That's when we see the truth. Joey was never a bad guy. He was putting on a facade, only trying to look tough. By standing up to Yugioh, Yugi forces Joey to recognize the strength in being kind to others. Then Joey finally opens up, declaring friendship with Yugi. But the transformation isn't complete yet. Later, an old friend named Hirutani invites Joey to join his gang. Initially, Joey refuses, but when Hirutani threatens to hurt Yugi and Honda, Joey reluctantly agrees. He stops attending school and keeps the situation a secret, leaving all of his friends confused. It's only when Yugi and the others search for him that we begin to understand why. Visiting his home, they find nobody answers the door. Miho, being as impatient as ever, forces the door open, and a bottle smashes into the door, accompanied by a drunken tirade. Suddenly, everything clicks. Joey's home life is a total mess, and his delinquent persona is a shield against the world he feels will abandon him if he's not always the toughest guy in the room. It also explains why Joey struggles to trust others. He keeps everyone at a distance until he can find a solution for this Hirutani problem, because he doesn't believe his friends can help him. It's only when Yugi and Honda help him take down the gang that he begins to trust his friends. Interestingly, Yugi harbors a similar fear when it comes to Joey, but first, I want to talk about the rival character, Seto Kaiba. Unlike Joey and Anzu, Kaiba doesn't start out as a friend or even an acquaintance. He and Yugi meet for the first time in episode 3, and right away, they have something major in common. They're both obsessed with games. At first, they seem to hit it off. Kaiba invites Yugi over to his mansion after school, where he shows off his massive card collection and a trophy wall stacked with tournament accolades. It's an impressive display. The guy clearly lives and breathes gaming. Then he asks if Yugi owns any rare cards, so they head to Yugi's family game shop, where Yugi's grandfather shows him their rarest card, the Blue Eyes White Dragon. Kaiba is stunned. He offers a briefcase full of rare cards in exchange, but Yugi's grandfather refuses. It's not about rarity or value, he claims. The card came from an old friend, so to him, it's priceless. Kaiba apologizes, seemingly understanding the situation. then he goes home. The next day, Yugi brings Blue Eyes to school to play with. Kaiba secretly swaps it for a fake copy. Joey and Honda catch him, then Kaiba has them beaten up by his private security when they confront him. Yugi arrives soon after. At first, Kaiba plays innocent, claiming Joey and Honda deserved it for accusing him, but Yugi isn't buying it. He tells Kaiba he also noticed the card had been swapped. He was just hoping Kaiba would return it on his own because he thought they had a special connection as fellow game enthusiasts. Yugi pleads with Kaiba, trying to get the card back. Kaiba attacks him and says you have to win by any means necessary. This is when it becomes clear the two couldn't be more different. While it is true that both obsess over games, they do it for completely opposite reasons. Yugi uses games to make friends, and of course after he solves the puzzle, they become tools of justice. Kaiba, on the other hand, is all about competition. He doesn't even care about the games themselves. He's arrogant and he uses games to dominate others to feed his ego. After Kaiba strikes Yugi, the spirit of the Millennium Puzzle takes over and challenges Kaiba to a shadow game. They play duel monsters. Kaiba eventually summons the Blue Eyes he stole, expecting it to win the battle, but the card refuses to obey. It sacrifices itself, leaving Kaiba in shock. Yugi explains this is because Kaiba's heart is not in the card. Then Yugi revives Blue Eyes with Monster Reborn and turns it against Kaiba. But just before defeat, Kaiba activates a card that forces the match to end in a draw, making him the first person Yugi fails to defeat. Still, Yugi recovers the stolen Blue Eyes card. Kaiba flees, storms into his trophy room, and smashes everything. Officially, the duel ended in a draw, but to Kaiba, failing to win means the same as losing, and that loss sends him into a spiral. From there, their paths diverge. Yugi continues to strengthen his bonds and even forms new ones, but Kaiba isolates himself. When Kaiba's father scolds him for building an entire theme park without permission, Kaiba reveals he's already seized control of the company and pushes his father aside. Later, he even betrays his brother Mokuba, subjecting him to a simulated punishment after he loses a match to Yugi. For Yugi, that's the tipping point. He saves Mokuba from the simulation and uncovers Kaiba's past. Mokuba pleads with him to save Kaiba rather than destroy him with the punishment game. It turns out Kaiba used to love games. After he and Mokuba were adopted by the CEO of a massive gaming company, that love was drilled into a weapon. And the ultimate irony is that Kaiba used a game of chess to convince the CEO to adopt Mokuba and himself, which means he used a game to help someone he cared about, similar to how Yugi uses games now. But somewhere along the way, that purpose was buried. And now it's time for the rematch. The duel plays like a thesis statement for their rivalry. Kaiba rushes to overwhelming board presence, confident that raw power will win the game. Yugi plays cautiously, drawing what looks like a losing hand. But then it clicks. Exodia erupts onto the field and completely obliterates Kaiba's 3 Blue Eyes White Dragons with a single attack. It's the perfect metaphor. Exodia is only possible through unity. 5 separate pieces that are useless while alone become unstoppable together. Yugi wins because he's been drawing on the thing Kaiba threw away, connection. But in a surprising turn of events, Yugi doesn't punish Kaiba like he did to his other foes. This time, the spirit of the puzzle does something different. He uses Mind Crush. This is another interesting twist on the Shadow Game power. In case it wasn't clear already, the spirit of the puzzle isn't just an alter ego for Yugi. He's a separate being in the same body, a darker one. He seems to enjoy doling out punishments, and across the series, he shows little hesitation in tormenting those who break the rules. In a lot of cases, the punishments feel just, but there's always a cruel edge to them. And at the end of the day, not all of these games are that serious. But Kaiba here definitely earned a punishment. He stole from Yugi, kidnapped his grandfather, assaulted his friends, and orchestrated an entire nightmare theme park just to get a rematch in a card game. The spirit had every reason to destroy him, but he doesn't. Why? Because Mokuba tells him who Kaiba used to be, a kid who loved games, who once used games to connect with other people, the same way Yugi does now. So when they face off for their second duel, the spirit of the puzzle doesn't just see a villain, he sees someone who's lost sight of what games are for. So instead of punishment, he offers Kaiba something else, a second chance. This is pretty much what the Shadow Game power becomes from this point onward. I know Mind Crush makes it sound like a violent hallucination. That would be a more apt title for what we've seen leading up to this, but it's the removal of the hatred and loneliness that hollowed Kaiba out in the first place. So when the duel ends, neither of them walks away the same. and that's the mark of a good rivalry. As much as I like the character writing in Season 0, what makes it so addictive from episode to episode is the games themselves. And it wouldn't be much of a deep dive if I didn't at least talk about some of them, so let's start with one of my favorites. Just before the Death Tea event begins, where Yugi has to face Kaiba for the second time, Yugi and his friends go to an arcade to hang out after school, and then the screen flickers. A message pops up on every machine, inviting Yugi to Kaiba Land. Anzu calls Kaiba arrogant and tells him to come to them instead. That's when Mokuba drops the bombshell. They've kidnapped Yugi's grandpa. If Yugi wants to rescue him, he has to go to Kaiba Land and defeat Kaiba again. Yugi becomes extremely distressed because of course it's an intense situation. Kidnapping is kind of the norm in Duel Monsters, and Season 0 is known for being edgier than Duel Monsters, but this is the first time Yugi's family was directly involved in one of the gaming scenarios. Yugi is also extremely confused because, again, he blacks out whenever the spirit of the puzzle takes over, so he doesn't even remember the first duel with Kaiba. Joey tries to console him, says they'll face it together, but Yugi snaps. He tells Joey he's not good at games and he doesn't want his help. Joey becomes enraged, but Anzu steps in to calm things down. They decide to leave Yugi alone for a while. Yugi sits down at an arcade machine to clear his head. He plays a fighting game against some random guy. Yugi wins a bunch of times and eventually, the stranger stands up and brutally assaults Yugi. Then he steals the Millennium Puzzle and leaves the arcade. When Joey returns and finds out what happens, he chases after the man. Joey catches up to him and threatens to beat him up if he doesn't return the necklace. The thief says a real fight would be too boring, so he challenges Joey to a game. Joey, still stinging from what Yugi said earlier, accepts the challenge. He's determined to prove he's not useless, that he can be good at games. The rules are simple. They stand on a narrow water pipe suspended over a rushing stream. First one to fall loses. And here's what makes the scene so good. Joey doesn't win with his fists. He dodges and weaves, he holds his ground. His opponent pulls a weapon and starts swinging, but Joey doesn't panic. Instead, he cracks open a can of soda he's had in his pocket. It explodes from all the movement, spraying directly into the attacker's face. The guy slips and falls. Joey takes back the puzzle and returns it to Yugi. This moment ties off a ton of threads at once. It shows Joey isn't just some brawler, he can actually learn. Yugi called him bad at games, but there he is, winning one on his own. And more importantly, he wins without using violence. In a game that's literally a fist fight on a pipe, he wins with quick thinking and not brute strength. It's the perfect sign that he's matured. It also reminds us how vulnerable Yugi is without the puzzle, especially when his friends aren't around. If Joey hadn't been there, things could have gone very differently. It's a great ending to the school arc and segues really nicely into the Death Tea arc, where Yugi and his friends must work together to complete some trials. Next, let's jump into one of the weirdest scenarios, the popularity contest. It's supposed to be a lighthearted event for Yugi's school, but of course, it quickly spirals into chaos. At first, Miho wants no part of it. She thinks the whole thing is shallow, but that changes the second she hears there's a new transfer student watching the event. By the way, it's Bakura, but nobody knows who he is yet. Suddenly, she's all in. Anzu joins in too, and then Joey signs up because, in a moment that's actually kind of sad, he hears there's prize money. Given what we know about Joey's home life, it makes sense that he would really need money. Technically, it's not a girls-only contest, but Joey is the only guy who enters. And when he realizes that he has zero chance of winning, being the only guy, he shows up to the finals dressed as a woman. The crowd doesn't buy it for a second. Someone throws something at him, he gets into a fight with somebody in the crowd, and then immediately he is disqualified. But the real chaos doesn't start until Kaoruko, an upperclassman, shows her true colors. She's the reigning champ with a perfect track record and a mean streak. Once she realizes she might actually lose, she starts cheating. First, she sabotages Miho's dress. Then she straight up knocks her unconscious backstage before the final round. Yugi finds Miho passed out and puts the pieces together fast. Then he challenges Kaoruko to a shadow game. The setup's deceptively simple. Kaoruko's costume includes a bouquet of roses. They take turns pulling 1 to 3 roses from the bouquet. Whoever pulls the final rose loses. Kaoruko thinks she's got it figured out. She manipulates the turns, thinking she's left Yugi with no way to win. But she forgets one crucial detail. There's an extra rose pinned in her hair. Yugi plucks it, hands it back to her, and just like that, she's holding the last flower. Yugi wins. Kaoruko still wins the popularity contest, seeing as Miho was unconscious, but she's hit with a punishment game that warps her perception. She hallucinates the crowd seeing her as old and hideous. Now the spotlight she fought so hard to keep becomes a prison she can't escape from. What makes this one so fun is just how simple the rose game is. It's a basic last turn puzzle, but the execution is insane. That twist at the end genuinely caught me off guard. I completely forgot about the rose in her hair, and clearly, so did she. And the punishment was perfect. Her dream of winning becomes a nightmare she can't escape. Adored by the crowd, yet haunted by the belief they see her as hideous. It's kind of perfect. Now let's talk about one of the most intense games in all of Season 0, the Ferris wheel bombing. It starts as a lighthearted day at a water theme park, but then somebody calls in a bomb threat, and suddenly the whole park is evacuated. Well, except for Anzu, who is stuck on the Ferris wheel, and Yugi, who is watching nearby. When the police arrive at the Ferris wheel, Yugi steps in. He's been following the bomber's crimes closely. All of them have involved riddles, turning each detonation into a game. So when the bomber calls the police, Yugi takes the phone and accepts the challenge himself. This game is not so simple. It's a puzzle involving colored balloons and numbered gondolas. Each bomb is tied to a specific pattern, and if Yugi can't solve it in time, the bombs go off. One by one, they do. Every time Yugi gets it wrong, another gondola explodes. And that's when the bomber taunts him. "You don't look so confident anymore." That line changes everything. It proves the bomber is nearby watching. Yugi refocuses, hops on a roller coaster nearby to search for clues, and realizes the whole riddle is based on a flower clock sculpture in the middle of the park. With that new logic, he gets it right. But instead of ending things there, Yugi flips the game on its head. He challenges the bomber to a gamble. He'll name the location of one final bomb. If he's wrong, the game's over. If he's right, the bomber loses. The bomber accepts. Yugi calls out Gondola 13. The bomber scoffs because that's the one he's been hiding in. Of course he wouldn't place a bomb in his own hiding place. Then he looks around, and there it is, a bomb placed inside his own gondola. Yugi doesn't give him time to panic. He triggers the explosive remotely, forcing the bomber to jump out and reveal his location to the police. What I love about this game is how the bomber might have actually won if he weren't so cocky. This was the first time we saw Yugi struggle in a game, and the whole scenario seemed like something a Batman villain would do. But now let's talk about a much more simple game. It starts with Miho asking Honda for a favor. She wants the brand new D-Shock watch, and she needs him to wait in line to buy it for her. Honda, of course, agrees, but when nature calls, Honda hands off his spot in line to Yugi, who ends up getting the very last watch. That's when the trouble starts. As soon as Yugi pays for the watch, a mysterious man tries to steal it. He lifts his sleeves to reveal 10 watches on his arms. He claims to be the only person in the world who has a completed set of all 10 of these special watches. He argues the D-Shock watch purchased by Yugi only has serious values in the hands of a real watch collector like himself. Honda shows up in time to stop it, the store owner calls the police, and the collector runs away. Later, Miho receives the watch, and to thank Honda for standing in line all day, she lets him wear the watch while they hang out at an arcade. Of course, Honda wants to wear it after Miho touched it, then the collector strikes again. Honda puts the watch in his pocket while he washes his hands, then the collector steals it. The sad part is Honda doesn't even realize it's missing until Miho asks for it back. Naturally, he panics, and Miho storms off in disappointment. Honda starts tearing through the arcade, creating a massive commotion trying to find it. That's when Yugi spots the thief. He confronts him. Of course, he gets beat up. That happens in like every episode. But when the guy tries to walk away with the stolen watch, the spirit of the puzzle takes over and initiates a shadow game. And it's a good one. A mechanical pigeon rises from a trap door, snatching the stolen D-Shock from the thief. When the pigeon comes back, a timer on the watch will activate. Each player takes a turn stopping the timer. The one who stops it closest to exactly 10 seconds will win the watch. But there's a catch. If you go over 10 seconds, a giant pendulum will slam into your hand. Of course, Yugi wins the game, but the watch collector says that was just a test to make sure the rules were real. Yugi agrees and they take turns again. This time, the collector takes even longer and the pendulum crashes down, causing Yugi to win. This episode was made when G-Shocks were at peak popularity in the 90s, so that's definitely where the inspiration came from, and the villain is a great parody of real-life watch enthusiasts. I also like watches, and even I can admit the watch collecting hobby is pretty ridiculous. I wouldn't say watch collectors are all thieves, but it's well known that they'll go to extreme lengths to acquire rare watches. Just look at the prices. Before we wrap things up, we need to talk about Monster World. Most of the games in Season 0 are one and done. They show up for a single episode, maybe they'll leave an impression, maybe not, then they'll vanish. Duel Monsters and Kapumon Chess are probably the only ones that recur until this. Monster World is the final game of the series, and unlike every game before it, this one stretches across 3 full episodes. That's why it's considered an entire story arc. It also doubles as the introduction to Bakura. Technically, we already met him during the popularity contest episode, but he was kind of a background character until now. The arc begins when Bakura invites Yugi and the others to his house to play a tabletop RPG called Monster World. Each player creates a character and explores a fantasy map full of monsters and traps using dice rolls. It's drastically different from anything we've seen before, and the game barely starts before everything goes off the rails. Miho's character is attacked by a monster named Zork, and her soul gets sealed inside the game. Honda panics, rolls out of turn, and suffers the same fate for breaking the rules. Joey follows soon after, and just like that, 3 players are out. It turns out Bakura has a Millennium item as well, the Millennium Ring, and the one who actually invited them to play wasn't Bakura at all. It was the dark spirit living inside his item. That's when the spirit of the puzzle takes over. Yami Yugi joins in to lead the party, and for the rest of the arc, he plays solo, controlling everyone else's character in a desperate attempt to rescue his friends and defeat the spirit of the ring. On paper, this setup is awesome. It's the perfect escalation for a final arc. Yugi's last opponent isn't just another cheater, it's a Millennium item wielder. We've seen something like this before with Shadi, but Shadi was more of a spiritual examiner. He was a good guy, testing Yugi to see if he was worthy of the puzzle's power. Bakura, or rather the spirit inside of him, is something else entirely, unambiguously evil. I also love that Yugi's friends are directly involved. Everyone in his group is participating in this one game, and for the first time, Yugi is fully aware of the spirit of the puzzle and chooses to fight alongside it. That's a huge shift from earlier in the series when the puzzle's power felt more like a mysterious force than a trusted partner. But for me, this arc doesn't quite stick the landing. I don't hate it. I think Monster World is conceptually one of the coolest ideas in the series, but it's also the only time in Season 0 where I found myself zoning out mid-game. And considering the stakes are higher than ever, with life or death tension, that really shouldn't be happening. Again, the issue isn't with the idea, it's the execution. The reason Season 0 is able to get away with introducing so many different games is the simplicity of the rules. Here in Monster World, it felt like there were too many moving pieces. Not enough time was spent setting it up. And I know Duel Monsters, aka the Yu-Gi-Oh card game, is notorious for its complexity. But here in Season 0, they do a really good job of keeping everything simple so that the audience can follow. The closest thing we get to an info dump in the entire series is a brief moment in episode 3. Yugi tells Kaiba how many cards they start out with, how many life points they start out with, and that losing all of your life points will result in a loss. It's funny because it happens right after Kaiba claims to be an expert of the game. And earlier in the same episode, Kaiba showed off his massive card collection and trophies from winning tournaments. I think it's safe to say Kaiba already knew how to play the game. But of course, Yugi said this to inform us, the audience. Setting aside that one exception, the rules of nearly every game in the show can be explained very easily with visual storytelling and maybe one sentence to go along with it. Granted, the Monster World arc doesn't have any egregious info dumps, but the pacing is really bad, especially when we're used to games ending in the same episode they begin. I understand what they were trying to do, and I still think Yugi vs Bakura is a great final matchup. But if I'm being honest, it's the only game in Season 0 where I was not fully engaged. Which is a shame, because this game had so much potential. But those are just my thoughts. If you haven't seen it yet, go and watch it right now. There's even a fan dub in English on YouTube. You've got no excuse. Huge thanks to Figgies for sponsoring this video. Don't forget to use code Enigma for 5% off your order. Thanks for watching.